stop. Don't click away. If you think this is about rocks and oil, you're missing the point. This is about who controls the future. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you the 3 blunt reasons Trump is obsessed with Greenland and why it matters to your wallet, your security, and the global balance of power. Stay until the end. The last 90 seconds reveal one move that could make all the rest obsolete. Greenland is 80% ice, but beneath that ice is a treasure trove: rare earths, strategic minerals, fossil fuels, and, crucially, geography. It sits between North America, Europe, and the Arctic sea lanes that are opening as ice melts. That combination, mineral wealth plus strategic location, turns Greenland from a fishing colony into a prize. Policy wonks have known this for years. Trump made it a headline again in 2025 by openly elevating Greenland to a national security priority. The latest move, why it matters. This December, the White House appointed Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as a special envoy to Greenland, an explicit signal that the U.S. is pushing hard on the issue. That appointment provoked immediate pushback from Denmark and Greenland's leaders, who reminded Washington that Greenland belongs to Greenlanders and is covered by international law. In short, this isn't a policy whimper, it's a declaration. What Trump says: I don't need the minerals. Here's the kicker. Trump has downplayed the idea that the U.S. needs Greenland for its minerals and oil, and instead frames the demand as a security move to keep Russian and Chinese ships away from Greenlandic waters. That line is important. Saying, I don't need the minerals, while simultaneously appointing a special envoy and talking about security, is political theater with a purpose. It's meant to reframe the argument from economic greed to national defense. And that reframing changes how other states, domestic audiences, and markets react. Reuters and multiple outlets reported on this national security framing when the White House made the move. 3 reasons he says it, and why each matters. Legitimize U.S. military presence. If you say Greenland is about security, you justify expanding military footprints, bases, and surveillance. The U.S. already has strategic installations in Greenland. Reframing the conversation around security makes any military upgrade look defensive rather than expansionist. That reduces domestic and allied political friction. Effect: easier to deploy forces, radar, and missile assets, quietly changing the Arctic balance of power. Lock out rivals without saying, we want the resources. Publicly insisting we don't need their minerals removes the appearance of a resource grab, while privately you can still push for investment, mining partnerships, and favorable legal changes. The carrots and sticks approach: promise security and development while ensuring strategic partners get first dibs. That's how influence turns into control without a formal annexation. Narrative control for domestic audiences. Telling your base that you're protecting the homeland from China and Russia is a powerful political message. It reads as toughness: I will keep foreign ships away. And it reframes criticism, like accusations of land grab, as unpatriotic skepticism. It's a narrative that polishes the tough guy image while generating public tolerance for risky moves. So, does he really mean we're not after minerals? Short answer, no. Or at least, it's complicated. Analysts and industry sources repeatedly note that Greenland contains significant deposits of rare earths and other minerals that feed modern tech and defense supply chains. The U.S. has a strategic interest in diversifying sources away from China. So even while saying we don't need minerals, the administration's actions, appointing envoys, promising investment, and upgrading military ties, are consistent with long-term economic and strategic access goals. In other words, the we don't need it line is a rhetorical tool, not a policy end. Where Russia and China fit in, the real threat. Both Moscow and Beijing have long shown interest in the Arctic. Russia for naval and port access, China for resource routes and the Polar Silk Road. That makes Greenland attractive for watchers on both sides. The U.S. security argument hinges on the idea that if Washington doesn't act, rivals will, and their actions could fundamentally rewire Arctic logistics and influence. But here's the nuance. Presence doesn't equal domination. Chinese activity is often commercial and investment-driven. Russian is more explicitly military. Trump's security framing collapses those nuances into a single threat picture: foreign ships. That simplification is politically convenient, but geopolitically messy, and it forces allies like Denmark into a delicate balancing act. The risks: why this rhetoric can spark real trouble. Diplomatic blowback. Denmark and Greenland have reacted sharply. Allies could recoil, diplomatic ties fray, and the idea of U.S. overreach becomes a rallying point for critics. Escalation spiral. If the U.S. upgrades forces and Russia and China respond, the Arctic could become a new hotspot, expensive, risky, and unstable. Domestic hypocrisy. policy. Saying not for minerals while courting mining deals feeds corruption charges and erodes trust. What would actual policy look like? There are 4 practical paths: respectful partnership with Greenland, investment capacity building; multilateral Arctic security cooperation, NATO, Nordic states; commercial investment with strong environmental standards; or unilateral power plays. Each has trade-offs. The smart long-term option is partnerships that balance security with sovereignty. But the rhetoric we're hearing pushes towards unilateralism. That's the danger. Why you should care. You might live thousands of miles from the Arctic, but this matters. Minerals in Greenland feed everything from your phone to defense systems. Control over Arctic routes affects shipping times and costs. And when great powers posture, markets move, alliances shift, and normal politics become national security emergencies. Trump's "we don't need the minerals" line is less about truth and more about direction. He's telling us how he plans to win by making security the headline and letting economics follow. If you want the follow-up, a deep dive into the mining companies, the local Greenlandic perspectives, and the legal roadblocks for any U.S. move, tell me in the comments which you want first. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the next episode will show the one legal and political barrier that could stop everything, and it's not what you think.